Hello, late starters. My name is Sarah Scott. I am the podcast manager here for the Late Starters Club, and I have been joining you on this journey from the very beginning through all 115 episodes that we have produced so far. And all of your stories have been so amazing, and I cannot wait to see how many more stories we tell. But all along the way, I have been sharing with Andrea one thing that I think that this podcast has really needed, and that is Andrea's late starter story. So, if you have not heard Andrea Vahl's late starter story and all of the amazing things that she has done and the lessons that she's learned as she has become a late starter, then you're in for a treat this week as I interview Andrea Vahl for the Late Starters Club podcast.
Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams.
Hello, everybody. Surprise. I am not Andrea Vahl. I am Sarah Scott. I am Andrea's podcast manager, and I have been with you on this ride since Late Starters Club has started. And I have loved every single story that has come out. However, I felt there was still one more story to tell, and I finally got her to tell it. So I am excited today to have your guest, your host, Andrea Vahl, is on with us today to tell us her late starter story. So welcome, Andrea, to your own show.
Thank you, Sarah. This is awesome. It's like taking everything I can do to just be interviewed instead of taking over and taking charge. So thank you. Thanks for the takeover. We talked about this. She was like,
I
you
know.
need to be interviewed. And I'm like, okay.
You do. And I'm so excited because I am going to be doing the week-long takeover now, which is going to be so much more fun. So I'll be doing the other 2 episodes this week as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. But let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. So, Andrea, for those that don't know your story, maybe as well as I tend to know it, because I've been working with you for a while, tell folks your late starter story, like from being an engineer now all the way out to everything that you've done. Like, give us the Cliff Notes version of
Yeah.
where you've come from.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. A lot of people are like so shocked to find out that I was an engineer. They're like,
Yeah.
"What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it does feel like a lifetime ago where I did start out in mechanical engineering." And I like to joke around that people, when I started working, people like, "Oh, you're an engineer and you can talk to people. You're going to be in sales," you know? So so and that was a great fit for me. So I've always been kind of in the sales engineering was sales engineering, and I've always had kind of a marketing mindset and things like that. But I did sales, I did engineering for a while. I ended up in telecom, and then in 2002, the telecom bubble burst
Mm.
and I was laid off. And that worked out fine because I had a 1-year-old son at home and I really wanted to stay at home. I was just hating daycare. And so I was happy to stay at home. Just thought, let's use the severance package and stretch that out. But I I was getting a little antsy after a little while and kind of freaking out, needed to do something else. So I was looking at starting like a little side gig, side business. And so that's when I found in-home wine tasting. So
Oh,
I also joke that that was a perfect job with a toddler at home. I got to drink on
wow.
the job.
Yeah.
got to and I
Us.
learned a lot about wine, super fun. It worked out well because it was in the evenings, but that was actually what led into my social media marketing realm, because that was right when Facebook and Twitter and YouTube
Mm.
were all really starting. And I was using them to market my in-home wine tasting business. And people were saying, "Oh my gosh,
Wow.
I see what you're doing. Can you teach me how to do it?" And so I was learning a lot about social media marketing. And I was also realizing there weren't the tutorials I wanted to see out there. There weren't the fun, funny tutorials that I like and that I was hoping for. It was a lot of dudes, kind of
Yeah.
going through real quick and not doing step by step. So whenever you see a hole in the market, you just think, hey, maybe I can do something for that. And that's when Grandma Mary's social media edutainer was born.
I
And
say
that's
that
how I
when
started
Grandma
my
Mary
business.
got born.
Yeah.
Oh, and for those of you that haven't found Grandma Mary, go back and find some old videos of Grandma Mary. We'll link it
Yeah.
in the show notes, but she's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, and so it was just a really fun time. It was just out I was out there, I was creating content, I was excited to serve and help people learn about social media and help people learn how to do it the right way and not be so confused about it. And also, like, I like to use my humor and my fun background, and I also joke that I always wanted to be Carol Burnett, so I got to
Mm.
I got to wear wigs and go to work and
You
drink
still
wine.
wear wigs. You
I
still
do.
wear wigs. We see them pop up in the episodes every now and again. You still wear wigs. It's great.
Mhm. Yes.
But it's more than just going into social media though, because you've either gotten bored or you've got, I think your brain just goes in multi directions because you do way more than that. You're also a stand-up comedian. You're also now an actress. I think it's official to say now you're an actress. It's been a
I
few
do.
movies and commercials now. Um, as well as a speaker and everything else that you do. How does all that come about for you?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's really about kind of really feeding some of these passions and these fun things that I wanna do and just going out and making the opportunities. It was kind of that way with my business as well. It was taking the opportunity and creating something yourself, not waiting. And when I first started my business, I started the YouTube channel and said, "Okay, I'm just gonna create these videos and I'm gonna make tutorials." And I know maybe there's similar tutorials out there, or maybe there's something already somewhat like this, but I'm gonna have a unique spin on it. I'm gonna have my own unique voice. And of course, Grandma Mary was a very unique voice, but that that doesn't change the fact that even if you aren't wearing a wig and getting kind of crazy, you have a unique voice to get out there and deliver that message, deliver that training, deliver that whatever it might be in the way you would, in the way you want to see it. So that was kind of what it was all about. And I started running workshops. Like, so I just found a way. That's how I started my business. Is I was like, okay, I want to do in-person workshops. And I found a little co-working space that had a little boardroom, and I would just figure out that, okay, I need 2 people to make this profitable. So if I get 3, that's gravy and, more, and sometimes I'd have 10 people in my workshop, and I just started doing it over and over and over and really listening to the feedback on what people wanted and making these workshops. So that's kind of how I became a speaker, right? Because I
Mhm.
was just did that over and over and got that experience. And definitely similar with the comedy as I just said, "Hey, there's comedy shows with all women comedians." I mean, there are some with all women comedians, but I kind of was taking this more unique angle of all mom comedians and started the show Moms Unhinged.
Which is doing phenomenally well lately. You've been selling
Yeah.
out your shows for that as well, and
Yeah.
you now have comedy channels up, so folks who want to catch up on your comedy can certainly go out and find your, comedy pieces out there, and again, we will link all of this. But one of the things that's really interesting here for me was listening to you talk about that, like, did you overthink it? So it doesn't sound like you did. So you're said, "Oh, I knew there were similar things, but I still went out and just did it." So to me, that's a not necessarily overthinking it or over researching the pieces of it and really just kind of going after what was fun. Is that really how that went?
Yeah, it sort of did, and it I the overthinking came later.
I know you told me about the Overthinkers Anonymous. So
Right? The overthinking came later. It was really about, like, just kind of a passion for it and excitement for it, and just knowing that it didn't have to I didn't put any pressure on it. It
Mm,
didn't have to be anything big. It just was like, "Hey, let's I'm growing from nothing.
mhm,
I'm not anything interesting. I'm not you know, anything that needs to have any pressure put on it. It was
mhm.
just, let's offer this and let's see where it goes." And
Yeah.
that's sort of kind of how the comedy went as well. It's kind of like, let's see where it goes. And I think as it grows, definitely where the overthinking comes in, because now
Mm,
it's like, "Ooh, what how big do we want it to grow? Or what direction do we wanna take it now?" Because now we have a thing, and now it's a little bit scarier. That's how I feel, is that it does get a little scarier as it gets bigger, because there's more possibilities open, whereas when you're starting out small, it's just like, "Let's do this little thing and see what happens."
yeah.
And I think that's kind of exciting too, because it's sort of like this little test balloon that you're sending up to say, "Hey, is this gonna work?" And I think it still makes sense to do that kind of thing. I'm actually doing that a little bit more with some of the online workshops I'm offering right
Mm,
now. I'm like, "Hey, let's try this online workshop and see how it goes, and let's try this topic and see if it gets people interested in it and signing up for it and paying for it. Let's try this price point. Let's try things
mhm,
and let the market give you some feedback." And sometimes that's challenging because maybe you didn't get the word out enough about it. There can be lots of reasons why it doesn't succeed. But if you have a little bit of a success, then that's the feedback that says,
mhm.
"Hey, someone's buying this. Maybe more people would," you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how it's been.
So I find that really interesting that when you think about something getting bigger, it almost becomes scarier because
Yeah.
it's interesting because you said, well, there's more possibility. I always feel like when it's smaller and there's less the possibility, I feel like I'm more afraid to do something for
Hmm.
lack of it getting off the ground versus,
Hmm.
oh, I have all these possibilities now and I can just choose one. But I'm
Yeah.
really curious, how do you decide what direction to go? Like, is there, I mean, if you're not overthinking it necessarily, like where's the drive or the instinct maybe that goes into what direction to choose.
Right. I think that is kind of an interesting kind of question, because I do find that some people might overthink early, and maybe it pays off to kind of recognize, am I an overthinker earlier and I'm not even getting started, or do I get paralyzed later when when it's more growth oriented and I don't have anyone to ask on which way what feedback they might have.
Mhm.
Um so I think for me, it's just basically going where the curiosity is, like, really feeling the energy around something
Mm,
and saying, "Do I have the energy to bring this forth? Do I have the energy to, make this happen?"
mm.
And sometimes it's a little bit of the path of least resistance, right? If it's
Yeah.
like launching something huge where we have to record a bunch of stuff, we are know that that's going to take a lot of investment
Right.
in our time and in our energy. But maybe it's just like, hey, let's choose the lowest hanging fruit right now, and something
Mm,
that I see has a lot of great possibilities. And kind of a funny joke I have around around this is, like, sometimes now that I've been in business for 14 years, things that I had more energy for, like I used to, create these big programs, be like, "Oh, let's record all these videos," and I could record at night and I would have all this energy. And it's almost like dating now, where I'm like, now we know too much, right? We know we know how difficult it can be. We're like, "Oh, man, I don't know if I wanna do that. It's hard," or
right.
something. I
Right, we
don't
know
know.
exactly how much time and effort it's going to take to put
Yeah.
some of these things together. Oh, I don't really want to do that. I have to go that way today.
Yeah, yeah,
So when you first got started, so we were talking about this before too, like when you were first getting started, and for anyone watching who is sort of in that, hey, I'm looking to launch something new, because of course they'll look at someone like you and say, oh, you've been doing this for 14 years. You've got this huge email list. You've got the clientele now that where you could kind of test things in the market and you'll sort of get a response normally right away because you've got all these people. But let's like swing back to the old Grandma Mary days where you're first getting started. Like, where do people start? Where do they really start with following this when there isn't necessarily an audience for them yet?
yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing, first of all, is not comparing yourself to other people,
Mm,
because you can get so bogged down in saying, well, they're doing it great. And look at their website. And that looks amazing. And they've got a big list and they're so successful. So I shouldn't even try. And I have had to do so much work around that. It has been such a lifelong process around not comparing yourself, where you are to
Mhm.
someone else's journey. And if you are excited about your thing, you're going to uh, be better at promoting it. So that's why you do
Mm,
have to realize that you have to be excited about whatever you're promoting,
yeah.
because you're going to have to say it a million times and people will still be like, "Oh, I didn't know you were doing that." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I have been talking about it nonstop. I feel like I've been, posting about it all over." And they're like, "How did I miss that?" I'm like, "I
Good
don't
question. Good question.
know."
Ow.
So I think when you're starting from scratch, realize you're going to have to talk about something way more
Mm,
than you realize going in. You can't just mention it once. You need to personally invite people to
yeah.
partake in it or to sign up for things, or you have to get the word out multiple times and start with like what assets do you have? What audiences do you currently have? So,
Mm.
for example, when I started with my social media coaching, I started with my local neighborhood. Literally, my first client was my neighbor down the street. It's so I was like, "Who do I know? What do
Yeah.
I have people in my local area," and I started just, like, offering these workshops,
Mhm.
and then what I would do is invite people to work with me one-on-one, and so, again, it just is, like, leveraging your local connections
Mhm.
and also even like leveraging the platforms. So I put my initial workshops on Meetup because I knew Meetup would allow for some organic discovery that I didn't have. And another way too is just use advertising. Like when I've gone into new markets for my shows, like we went down to Colorado Springs and we went
Mhm.
down to Fort Collins. Well, I don't know the people in that area. I have some friends in both areas, and I reached out to those people personally saying, "Hey, we're gonna be doing a show here, invite your friends, tell your neighbors, let me know if there's anywhere that you could post or, help me out with that." But then I also just ran ads for it and filled up the shows. So it didn't cost
Perfect.
me a lot of money to run those ads, but it got into a perfect, got my
Yeah.
show in front of that perfect audience.
That's awesome. And of course, I lost the question I wanted to ask you. So I want to ask you one of the questions that you love to ask your guests, which is, what do you think is the benefit from doing this stuff like in your 40s and 50s versus having to maybe try to do this in like your 20s and 30s?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure you have more energy in your 20s and 30s. I
Like
definitely
those midnight all-nighters were a whole lot easier then, weren't
Oh,
they?
oh, that is not happening anymore. When I was first starting, I mean, I did start my business, like, when I was, late 30s, so, very late 30s, and, start this social media business, and I was able to do a little more late night work because I was super passionate and I had these young kids at home, so it was the only time I could work
Right.
practically, so it was a lot of coffee. A lot of coffee happened during the day, but and it was super exciting. Not that it's not exciting now, it's definitely just a little bit different though, but I do think the advantage of starting later is just this detachment from the outcome. It's not as personal when I get a rejection because I
Mhm.
have a little bit more, resilience, I have a little bit more emotional maturity, and I'm able to just roll with things. Got some really bad comments on my YouTube, videos recently, just like, "Delete, I don't care, I'm not stressed about things." I don't you get into your 50s and you just don't care anymore. I
No, I don't have the
You
I don't have the energy for it anymore. Goodbye.
I but I do think that's part of it. I think it's resilience. You realize that this is a marathon and it's okay. It's gonna be we've got some wisdom, we have some intelligence around how things can go, and we know that we just have to keep going and it'll be a success in some way. It's not always the way we think it's going to be, but
That's true.
it's going to be amazing.
That's very true. And you did actually mention one more thing we didn't bring up in the intro that you do, which is you don't do marathons, right? But you're a
I
at
did
like
too.
a kind
Right.
of like a
I
Spartan
did.
athlete or something. Like you
Yes.
do these
So
crazy things.
right. I did 2 marathons back when I was younger before kids, but yeah, just half marathons, and then now I've been competing in some fun different types of races. I've actually got the Camp Gladiator preliminary race coming up, this preliminary qualifier coming up this weekend. I did a Spartan race last week, and we have a team this year of 50 plus women, and it's going to be amazing. A team of 4 of us. The 4 of us did the Spartan race last week, and we're doing the prelims, and then
Wow.
we're definitely going to qualify. We already know that we're going to qualify for the finals coming up in Texas in October or November. We are the
Wow.
Colorado Crushers, so we are.
I
But
love
yeah,
it.
it's that has the thing that has been helpful with that is just plugging into a group. Like,
Mm,
that group can motivate you. All of a sudden, you're doing crazy stuff, and I think that's a thing with business as well. Like, I've always been part of some mastermind or some type of group,
mm,
because that group can lift you up when things go wrong. They are motivating you to try new things. You're watching people do things and you're like, oh my God, if she can do that, then I can do that. I mean, and so that's the great thing about support system and a group of like-minded people. So whether that's a mastermind, an informal group of friends doing the same thing you are,
mm,
or even just a coach, that can be super helpful. I have a comedy coach. I have a comedy group of that I'm part of, that we all um, talk about things that we're writing and working on so that we can get better that way. And we're accountable to our writing as well.
mm.
So that is a huge thing. To the power of numbers is a big benefit.
So, what is your favorite productivity hack? Because
Mm.
literally, I think we've just listed off like 5 different topics of things that you do today, from your business to the gladiators to the comedy to the acting to all of that. I mean, that is stuff you're doing today, like in the season. So, how on earth are you managing? Like, what is your productivity to get through all of this? 'Cause that's just crazy.
I actually don't really know. Someone else asked me, like, what how do you do it all? And I don't really know. Like, I love this saying of bite off more than you can chew and chew it. But that doesn't really work for everybody. That
No.
doesn't really work for everybody. And I think for me, what works is just really getting good at scheduling things and really planning your day out and planning the big rocks that need to fit in for the day. There's some people who are really good with their calendar and they're like really just
Yeah.
plugging in their calendar and blocking things off. I'm not as good at that. And I'm definitely not perfect at getting things done. But I realize that if I don't have a deadline, it never gets done.
Mm,
So I need to commit to something actually going live, happening. And that's why I will announce workshop dates before I'm ready. I will announce launch dates before I'm ready. I sign up for races because they're coming. There's a specific date. I
mm,
book shows before I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. And it has to happen. So I do have a couple of things that I use to track um, my writing. One is a app called Habit, and it's a super simple app. It's just a habit tracker that just I plug in that I did the activity that day. And sometimes what I've used is a pain point to make sure that I get something done. Like, I commit to something really painful. I mean, by painful, I mean maybe what I think talked about how my one friend committed to running. running down, streaking in the neighborhood if she didn't get something done. So she got that done. She got it done. But
Yeah, I would
yeah,
too. I know I've seen you do that a few times with me too before. You'll call me up and you'll say, "All right, I need to do this thing, so this is what we're going to do, and if I don't do it, this is the thing." And it's
I
okay.
know.
And normally that fits me quite nicely, but
I I know. Sometimes it has been like, if I don't get this done, I'm gonna give you $100. And,
yeah.
so sometimes money can motivate you, or I just saw something, or I talked to someone who said that their pain point was for anyone who lost or who didn't do this competition, they would have to go and do 5 minutes of stand up at an open mic. I'm laughing that that's like the
That's the
that's the
pain
pain
point.
point.
Yeah, let's do this.
That's
I'll
for
just
the
do it
loser,
anyway.
That's what I do all the time, so I would not.
But no pain point there. No pain point
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
Um, all right. So I know we're kind of getting up on our time. So there's two more questions. One is given that we're now into episode, I think by the time this launches, we'll be at like 117, somewhere in there. Out of all of the episodes, which ones have been like your absolute favorite? Like people you never thought you'd get to talk to, or just were like your favorite people to learn from?
Yeah, it's so hard because I have learned from like every single person. I've taken something away. And I think for me, that has been the most surprising part of this podcast is how much I have gotten out of it. Like my original, um, you know, reason for starting it was to feature inspiring stories. But I had no idea how much I would be inspired myself. And
Mm,
sometimes it's just so shocking and keeps me really going. But I love the stories of people who are doing something even in their 70s, 80s, they're out there just living life, taking classes, not stopping, starting businesses when
climbing
they're
mountains.
climbing mountains, starting climbing El Deirdre Walownik,
Yeah.
climbing El Capitan,
Oh my god.
and competing in the
The
Olympics and
Olympics.
doing, I mean, just amazing, incredible things. And what I love about it is that it it makes me realize that we have so many different lives and
Mhm.
experiences available to us, and it's not you're not over the hill at age 60, or I don't
Yeah.
think anyone has to retire ever, and if you life is what you make it, right? And I think the most vibrant and exciting people that I've met are the ones that are just still approaching life from a point of curiosity
Mhm.
in their 70s, 80s, and things like that, and just really
Yeah.
still learning and discovering.
Yeah. These stories have been absolutely amazing. I mean, it definitely shows you that you can just keep living your life. Like there is
Yeah,
no cap whatsoever anywhere along the lines if you don't let it be there. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've taken away. As long as you don't say that there's a cap,
right,
there's no reason to live with one.
right.
Okay, and so our last and final question, as always. So you have gotten more than your fair share of favorite quotes, but what is your favorite quote? What is your motivational saying that keeps you going when times get tough?
So So I have a couple of favorite quotes. One is shorter, from Abraham Lincoln: "Let no feelings of discouragement prey upon you, and in the end you are sure to succeed."
Hmm.
And I love that because I love the idea of the feelings preying upon you. They're you know, discouragement is the enemy. You
Yeah.
can just keep going, and you're going to succeed. And the other one I love is from Theodore Roosevelt. It is: "Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory or defeat." And I
Wow.
think that for me is about just getting out there and trying. And there have been plenty of failures that I have had that it just didn't go right. I've launched courses that just took crickets. I've put things out there. I've thought, oh my God, I've taken it too personally.
Mm,
And what it's about is just continuing to get out there and try things and put things out there
Yeah.
and not worry and not be tied to that outcome, and to say this life is one big experiment, right? We're out there in the arena doing things and not just sitting watching other people.
So that actually leads me to one final question too then. For all those failures and things that have gone wrong, what has been your secret to overcoming that and to move on and not allow it
Mhm.
to pull you down? What is that great secret you carry?
Yeah, I cry in the shower.
In the shower. That's a good one.
No.
I like that.
No, it is. It's about, for me, what has really come down to is feeling the feelings and allowing
Mm,
yourself to say, it's okay. I get it. I feel disappointed
yeah.
and that sucks. And I feel really bad right now. And maybe I'm embarrassed, or maybe I feel like, like people are talking about me behind my back, or no one's talking about me behind my back. I mean, maybe they are, but who cares? Let them talk. Don't talk to my face about it,
Keep it to
No,
yourself. It's all
no,
good.
not my business. It's not my business
Right.
what your idea is. So I think it is just feeling the feelings, saying it's okay, talking to yourself really gently, and acknowledging yourself for doing taking the risk and doing the things. It's just, that's a huge accomplishment. And kudos to you for getting out there and giving it a try, because I, for one, want to get to the end of my life with no regrets and say I lived life to the fullest.
Oh, I love it. That's a great way to end it. Andrea, thank
Mhm.
you so much for being game here and telling your story too. I think it's something everyone should hear. They should know why you started this. So I am so thrilled, and I cannot wait to do the takeover for the other two episodes. Thank
Thank you, Sarah. Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.